I grew up in Warren, Ohio, which is in the northeast part of the state. It's an industrial and agricultural area, driving past a steel mill at one moment and then driving into cornfields the next. That was the basis of the economy of where I'm from. My paternal grandfather immigrated from Poland shortly before the Great Depression. My grandpa and grandma, they met in Ohio, got married, didn't have a lot of money. Sometime in 1940 or 1941, they homesteaded and they built the house in pieces as they could afford materials. That's where my parents live now to this day. When I was really young, I remember looking at my dad's slides. He took pictures of trains, and I remember digging into them and looking at them and just being sort of obsessed with them.
Every time we would go somewhere on a trip, we would stop to watch for trains. Many times, Geneva, even going up to Maine. And that's just how it was,
Whenever we've seen a train track.
Yeah.
We've spent a lot of hours watching and filming and taking pictures, and just having a good time together.
I bet the good stuff's in here. Hold up, I think we got it. Oh, wow, yeah. Oh my God, yeah, this is it. I haven't seen these before. Looking at my dad's slides, trains were a critical part of my personal history, my family history. Because the area that I grew up in was so industrial, trains just came right along with that. I had family members on both sides of my family that worked for the railroad. It was something that served all of the industries that I grew up seeing in my neighborhood, in my community. These iron ribbons that are tying the country together from East Coast to the West Coast and from the North to the South.
What I remember is Mark, the lower part of his body, his legs, he was tired. His legs would be tired. The pediatrician is what found the problem in his aorta. It was cutting off some of the blood flow the way it was shaped, and that's what was causing him to be tired.
Turning 5, I had to go into the hospital to have open heart surgery. I was scared. There was all these things happening to me that I didn't understand, and it made me feel like I was broken, and I think that is what stayed with me from then on.
You almost wish, I did, was me instead of him going in. I just didn't want to see him go, but he had to go.
Coming out of the anesthesia and going absolutely wild. I was strapped to the bed rails, but I was, writhing and struggling and screaming, and I was just so out of it and confused, and the nurses were trying to hold me down and calm me down. I remember that very clearly. I can only imagine what that did for my parents, the terror that they must have felt, But I knew that we were all there to try to fix something and to make it better. So, I had to go through with it. I think the hardest thing to explain to somebody is what it is about trains that we like so much. as a kid holding my dad's childhood Lionel trains. I remember just being sort of taken by the different shapes and the colors, and I wanted to capture that for myself. Trains just stuck with me and my brother, and it became something that we did together. And as I got older and was able to use a camera, I got into photography. That wasn't really something that was considered cool in high school years. I was introverted and quiet, and I kept to myself. I was an easy target for bullying. I didn't want people to judge me, and I felt like if the more the people knew about me, the more reason they would have to look at me as being weird or different. And so I just kept it to myself. But watching trains is something that is very meaningful to me, not just because of the trains, but why I started watching them in the first place, which is a connection that I have to my family. After school, I took to photography very strongly. I was just shooting as much as I could, anything that I could think of. And that's when it dawned on me that I could make this into a career. Working for newspapers and then working for myself, it was a hustle. Gaining an incredible amount of perspective, telling a lot of other people's stories, meanwhile ignoring my own. I had anger, sadness, gets to the point sometimes where I get crippled by my anxiety and feeling broken. I was maybe in my mid to late 30s when I was diagnosed with PTSD. I was just really baffled, like, how could I have PTSD? This doesn't make sense. That counselor that I saw who pinpointed that moment in my life when I had that heart surgery as the catalyst to triggering the PTSD, and events that occurred after that as I got older sort of compounded it and made it worse and worse. The biggest thing for me, realizing that those bad thoughts that I have are not real, that in this moment I'm safe, I have control over my body, and I can deal with the situation at hand. Being by the tracks was really the only thing that made me feel like I could just be myself. I wanted to explore a healing process. How can I create a new body of work that was a therapeutic exercise for me? Using a large format camera that is an antique, hiking into wilderness areas, finding remote locations, and waiting.
Right now I'm just trying to find a nice balanced composition. might like this better. I might do this instead.
Dealing with any sort of trauma, to manage it and to take care of it. It's a slow process to create a long exposure that abstracts the train. That's a way of teaching me to be patient. I can get lost in my thoughts, and I could think about my family, moments in my life, and how they're connected through trains. It's very healing for me.